like Dr. Mathur said, if you don't, by when, right? If you do not have, even if you want to continuously work on your goals, my dear, maybe you'll have to just think, okay, I will do these 5 things, but at least achieve this thing by 2026. And then what I do next, I'll achieve by 2028, right? Which is why it is very important. Otherwise, there's no end to it. You'll keep, oh, I have time. Oh, I have time. Or there's no timeline set. So it's very important to ask these questions to yourself. How long will I give myself to achieve this goal? Right? If someone wants to become a doctor, he has said 2036. I'm sure he has counted the number of years of schooling, number of years of MBBS, and then his masters, and then he will, start practicing as a doctor, right? He has done that calculation, and so that planning has gone into that, right? So that's a good plan. So of course, this is what SMART means. We've already talked about. By now, you all know what SMART target and SMART action plan would mean. Moving further, I have picked up a very, very simple example. Say if you want to run, your goal is to run a marathon by so-and-so year, maybe 3 years from now. What is the first thing you will do? You'll tell yourself, I need to start training in the first place, immediately, right? Measurable, I use fitness tracking device. Someone has to tell me I will be able to run a marathon at all. I'm not fit enough, but I'm hoping to run a marathon, right? So I need to see, I have to track my fitness, and all of a sudden you will not become a sumo or, super fit person, right? You have to track your fitness and gradually work towards building your strength to be able to run a marathon. So that's important. Attainable. I have never run a marathon. I have never run even a 100-meter race, but I aim to run a marathon. It's unrealistic. It's not attainable unless I reach that stage where I can even aspire to run a marathon, right? Relevant, I value my health and wellness, and this fitness goal is going to help me sustain a healthy lifestyle. So when you say you want to live your life to the fullest, and being healthy is one of the things that you will sort of break it into, then this is what you need to do. I have another example for writing a book, because you wanted to write articles and you already have written articles, and I'm sure a lot of you at this stage of life feel that writing, whether it is for social media, whether it is for various blog posts that you do, and even if you do a video blogging or something like that, you need to put down a script, right? And that writing, if you need to have a SMART action plan to be able to write a book, here are some of the points that you need to have in the first place. Can you write a book without an idea? You cannot. You need to firm up the idea. So you need to be very specific. What am I going to write about? Oh, I want to write a book about the world. You will not know what topics to touch upon. How will it flow? What message do I want my book to carry? Right? So these are some of the questions. So very simple example. Maybe, of course, we will be sharing these examples with you at a later stage, and it will help you think a little further. So why plan SMART? Why is it so important to plan SMART? Okay. Number one, it reduces ambiguity. It makes your path very clear, right? Very often I have heard a lot of, oh, I want to do this also. I want to do, unless you have a clear goal, right? You cannot move further. You will accordingly allocate resources. Like again, I'll use the same example. Whether you want to mobilize 500 households or 20 households, you can accordingly manage and allocate resources for that. You might also need some money, right? You want to go to another locality, you need some resources to travel, you need some funding, you need some permissions, you need the municipality to come on board. So you have to think of all of those things, right? And it will help you allocate resources in an appropriate manner. Next is, you will also be able to report accurately. You will not say, oh, I have lived my life fully. I'm sorry, I'm taking that example again and again. But yeah, you have to be able to say, I am very healthy, I have run a marathon, right? So you will be able to report accurately. I run a half marathon. Next, I'm going for a full marathon. Right? So you will be able to report accurately, and you will also be able to monitor your progress. I want to lead a healthy life. I am running a marathon now. I'm running every day. So you will also be able to monitor progress, daily progress, or whatever intervals you want to monitor your progress at. The second thing is, again, the key questions. Do we have the tools to achieve the task? Right? We need to ask ourselves, all right, I want to identify all the waste hotspots in the city. How will I do that? Do I have tools to tell exactly what's happening and where? Right? You might need an app. There are lots of apps, right? You can go look for them. Right? I'm just giving you one-off example again. Is the ambition realistic? Is it even achievable with the kind of resources I have? We all have our limitations in terms of resources that we can put together, the amount. You all have your studies also, and at the same time you may have another goal. So you will have to allocate time accordingly. We all have, given our responsibilities, we all have our own limitations. So we have to be very realistic. That doesn't mean that you cannot have audacious goals and audacious dreams, but you work towards that accordingly. Are we addressing the correct issue? Right? It's very important, which is why, you know, Dr. Mathur and Dr. Barucha both said that it's important that it is your, you know, goals should be based in science. What am I trying to do? What is the right way to clean the lake? It's very important to understand that. What is the right way to make a particular space green? I don't know how many of you have heard about this story that you know, we have this problem of vilayati kikar, okay? And the British, to make it, you know, the whole landscape very green, they just sprinkled the seeds of vilayati kikar all across. And it happens to be an invasive species, which makes the soil acidic, which doesn't allow other plants to grow into healthy individuals, right? So again, are we addressing the correct issue? Is our research based in science? Our assumptions based in science? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Okay, now it's very important, does the task have a clear start and an end date? If you want to score well in your board examination, you can't start studying in February, right? You can't complete the syllabus, 5 subjects, full length syllabus, you can't do that, right? You have to start preparing, break it down, work backwards, make a good plan, and then do it, right? So this is the reason why we need to plan smart, okay? Here is a little example that, you know, and similar kind of targets that you will be working on. Again, the priority area is wetland conservation. Why am I saying priority area? There can be multiple priority areas, but you cannot be working on everything. Saying I'll conserve nature may not be enough. You may say that there is a wetland right next to my house that I will begin with, right? You also heard Dr. Sejal saying that, you know, begin with yourself, then your family, and then start growing your circle of influence and impact. Right? So here is a little smart target. By 2050, at least 50 wetlands have been protected through community conservation measures, and at least 10 wetlands reclaimed and restored by urban expansion through policy action. Now, we have to, again, there are multiple questions that will come to your mind. Can anyone, you know, think of one question that comes to your mind? Why 50 wetlands? Why not 100 wetlands? Why not 1,000 wetlands? And 2050 is a long time. It may be a very under-ambitious goal. And by that time, we may have already lost so much that, you know, conserving 50 wetlands may not be enough to protect an ecosystem, right? So you have to ask these kind of questions. I don't have answers right away, right? But these are the kind of questions you have to ask. Is my goal too under-ambitious or is it too over-ambitious is what you have to ask. Now, if I break down this particular target into all the 5 steps, let's look at that. Specific, you have to answer the question, how will I do it, right? So it is protected through community conservation. The communities living around the wetland will be engaged. We will do awareness programs with them. We'll tell them how important wetlands are for water security, and then, you know, these are the 5 things that you can do to protect the wetlands around you. Similarly, we'll work with 10 different communities across this particular district to be able to reclaim 10 wetlands, right? So this becomes very specific. Now measurable, how many? Again, 50 wetlands is just a number, so you should be able to measure it. How many wetlands should I conserve to call myself successful? You may say, no, I need to work on 100 or 10 will be enough. That's the kind of question you have to ask yourself. Achievable, restored from urban expansion through policy action. Now, why I'm saying achievable? Because see, development will happen anyway, right? So it is possible for me to, as an individual, it may be or with, with the local community or the local agencies, it may be possible for me to only work on 50 wetlands and reclaim 10 wetlands. That's only that is realistically possible, so let me not aim for more. And time bound is 2050. Of course, I mean, this is just a random thing, I have put it over there, but I'm just letting you know that you have to ask these kind of questions to yourself to be able to have the right kind of plan, which is specific, which is smart. You're keeping the time in mind, the resources you need. And one very big question that you need to ask yourself is, who do you need to work with? What are the stakeholders that you need to work with to make it all possible? Can you just walk into a wetland and then just do something? I work for education. Can I just walk into a government school and say, oh, I want to do this program? No. I will need the permission and support from the Department of School Education to be able to do that, right? So that's a very important question, and here we have the stakeholders board, the different stakeholders that you need to work with to be able to achieve any goal that you have or any target that you have around biodiversity conservation. So of course you have to work with citizens, people around, right? The communities in and around your school. Look at your own communities, the communities that you are yourself a part of, or your family and your extended family is a part of, where you can have some influence, right? Next is, of course, businesses and industries. I'll give you a wonderful example. One of our past MCOP delegates, lived near, an industry which used paper, which used to manufacture paper, and was the cause of a little riverine which was running past the factory. It was being polluted because of this particular industry. He actually went, conducted a little survey, convinced the owner of the manufacturing unit, okay, and also showed him the data to convince him to do something about cleaning up the river, or also ensuring that no industrial waste is being thrown into the riverine. Right, so these kind of things, of course, he has not completely understood the impact of his action, but he knows that he has managed to influence, and the business owner also agreed to take action, right? So that definitely is going to make a difference. Non-profits such as WWF-India, we are always there. We are organizing these kind of programs so that, you can all become leaders in your own communities and you can go ahead and make a difference, right? Of course, you can reach out to local politicians, not necessarily politicians. You can also reach out to local industries, local agencies such as your municipality and all, to convince them about the issue. And eventually, you always, when you work within local agency, you certainly influence the government. The government already has created a law, number of laws to protect biodiversity and protect our environment. The challenge is the communities have to come together, people and citizens have to come together to help them enforce these, right? So, and all of this is contributing to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure you're all, learning about these 17 SDGs, through your curriculum, but maybe you can just deep dive to further understand, and this helps us achieve. And basically these 17 goals were formulated in the year 2015, and we all are looking at achieving these goals by 2030, which seems to be an uphill task because we are already running way behind on this, right? So these are the 3 CBD goals. Of course, I'm not going to go deeper into it. You've already attended number of sessions. Vishesh ma'am is here. She's already talked about the CBD goals. So you will be allocated targets under these 3 goals. And how do you translate a vision into impact is an important thing, because once you have a target, once you have a goal, what are the steps? How do you determine the steps that you have to take towards achieving them? So this is a simple a graph that tells you how you have to bring down your vision to break them down into goals. Again, like I said, saying that giving a very generic feedback like this doesn't have the soul may not be enough. You should be able to articulate in terms of tangible items, right? And that's what you do when you identify the priority area of actions, right? So I cannot do everything. Wetland is what I'm going to focus on. So my work, I'll see which area of wetland conservation can I contribute to. Similarly, you set targets. Like very clearly the example said that 50 wetlands or 10 wetlands, that's something that you have to realistically determine. Create an action plan and then execute and implement your action, right? So as it goes from vision to executing the implement, it also goes back from your action to your vision. Whether your action is helping you achieve that goal, that cycle must go on. And if you do not do that, you will not know where you are headed, right? It's very important that you take time out after implementing your plan for a bit, just reflect upon, take time out to reflect upon the actions, the impact that you have created, and your actions are measurable. When you break it down further, you will be able to exactly pinpoint on indicators which will tell that you have been successful in achieving those goals. These are some of the key processes for target setting. These are the aspects that you will be touching upon when you will be drafting your actions, right? So definitely you need, if you want to work with people in communities, I gave again a very simple RWA example. People may not know how to segregate waste, right? So this would require some kind of capacity building and skilling and telling them that, not all plastic can be recycled together. If dirty plastic is being mixed with other kinds of plastic, recycling becomes very difficult, right? So that capacity building and training is required when you're working with community or various stakeholders. Education and awareness for the public, right? That's very important that you all realize that. Financial instruments is very important. You will also have to continuously think about the resources that you will need. So you will, like I just said, that if you want to work with 500 households, you may have to travel a little bit, right? You need some funds for that. If you want people to start segregation and do some training session, you might need some resources for that, right? So financial instrument is very important. It has to be based in science. Well-researched action plan will always be closer to will get you closer to your goals. And working with, of course, policy and advocacy, you will have to continuously work closely with the government and the agencies which are responsible for that. So as citizens, our responsibility is to support the government in implementing the policies, right? And working with community and people participation is very important. And of course, monitoring and evaluation, because like I said, that you have to continuously monitor your progress to know whether you are even achieving these goals or not, or you're just headed in some other direction and you wandered off, right? So that's something important. This is the template of the action plan that will be given to you. I am not showing you a lot. I'm just showing you one simple example. By 2025, restore urban biodiversity in at least 40% of community parks and green areas with help of local bodies. You have to think about the how. How means what is it that you can do? And very simply, campaign and plantation are the two things that this is actually one of the action plans which were created last year. So I've just picked that up to show you what was done earlier. So campaign and plantation is what they had done. They had decided to do. They had to actually, target a particular group. They decided that they will work with the parent-teacher association, with the local administration, and also engage the school children. And by when they thought that they will be able to achieve this by July 24, of course, they did a few campaigns and managed to achieve some success in changing the behavior of students in their school is what we were reported in January this year. So definitely there was some success there. And how will they measure their progress? They said that number of spaces that needed, campaigning and plantation exercises were identified. And then if you break it down further, they will further make an action plan where they say, okay, these are 5 spaces that you have done. And from these 5 spaces, you have retrieved 10 kgs of waste, which was, or litter, which was, spread all across. So this is what they actually did to achieve the goal that they had set out to do. So I am not, this is just the action plan. If you want, you may just go through it. I'll leave you all with this for a minute, because this is what you will be all expected to do by the end of this conference. And on day 3, you will have to present it to a big audience. So this is what you will be doing today and tomorrow, right? And when we have the sessions with Dr. Mathur and Dr. Barucha tomorrow, I would urge you all to keep thinking about the targets which are assigned to you and what kind of actions you will take, right? So keep all of these things in mind. Everything that you do from here on is you have to think about the actions that you would want to take to achieve the targets allocated to you. So that's the end of it, I think. So yeah. So any questions from this point? No questions at all? Everything clear? You will all be able to make absolutely perfect action plans? Okay, yes.
Ma'am, we talked about that the government has also implemented many laws in order to achieve like biodiversity threats. But I feel like they are not properly maintaining that, as we have also seen in the processes that the last is that monitoring and evaluation. So what do you think we have to do in order to monitor it throughout?
I think so. We have Vishesh ma'am here to answer that question. So I don't know if you heard the question.
No, just repeat.
So can you please repeat your question? It's a good one. So,
Ma'am, what are all the steps we can? What are all the steps we can prefer in order to monitor and evaluate the action plans which we have implemented?
I think that's one of the most crucial aspects. You can prepare an action plan, you can decorate it, you can make it as good as possible, but unless you implement it and implement it effectively, right? That's what is the most important. And for that, you must have some measurable, smart measurable indicators. How will you measure what your actions have led to, or whether you have achieved those actions also, right? So in your action plan, I don't know, I'm sure that's there. You have to have your indicators through which you will measure, right? And keep them simple, but you need to include those, right? That's what is important.
How can we monitor it throughout, ma'am?
Throughout, depending on what indicators you choose, it could be a monthly something you measure, it could be a 6 monthly action. Like for example, she said for plastic, whatever you're collecting. Are you measuring it monthly to see how much are you collecting? Maybe if there's a decline, of your collection, that shows that your action has had some impact. Now people are not throwing waste. That itself is a good way to monitor. Or you measure every 6 months to see how much we've collected. So you say this much we have removed. It all depends on your action plan also. Right, Dr. Mathur, would you like to add something?
Just the reporting part. See, with monitoring, there is also a reporting format, because there has to be a system agreed upon that what and how you will report in 6 months time, in a 1 year time, or a 2 year time. So monitoring and reporting, they go together, and the efficacy will be known through monitoring, and the reporting will ensure that we are comparing all the people involved against a certain time frame.
Thank you, sir. And ma'am.
I hope your question was answered. Anybody else who has any questions? Yeah, please do. Please speak in the mic. No, that's because the audience and the sitting online.
Hi again. This whole thing of SMART and how you reach goals is something that is very important for you to do in any case. But there is one factor which is missing in this, and I think you have to remember this, and that factor is passion. You've come here with a passion. If you lose that passion when you're trying to do that goal, you will never ever reach it. And that passion is what has to be kept there, right? And you can do it. It's certainly, if you have that passion, it will work for you. And passion brings out many more new things that you want to do. And you know what gives you that passion? The most critical thing that gives you that passion is the love for nature. It's very simple. You love nature and it creates passion.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I think. So every single speaker who has come till now has said that it's very important to connect with nature, have love for nature, which will drive you to do all of this that the whole of humanity is trying to do. Protect nature, build a sustainable future, make sure that, 20 years from now, we all have access to clean drinking water. We all have access to good, nutritious meal, right? So that is it from my side. Thank you so much. I know everybody must be very hungry because it's time for lunch. Am I right? Organizers, Sulagna and Shreya, is it? Yeah. So Surbhi, yeah, over to you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barucha, Dr. Vinod B. Mathur, and Ms. Vishesh Uppal, and of course, Neha ma'am, for your enlightening session on smart action plans. Your guidance will undoubtedly help us create effective and impactful conservation strategies. The tools and techniques that you've shared with us will enable us to set clear, achievable action goals and ensure that our initiatives are both strategic and measurable. Now, I would also like to invite... Okay. We will now break for lunch as you're all very hungry. We will reconvene in exactly 45 minutes to continue with the next session. Thank you. Hungry? Hello. Again, I hope you've all had lunch to, not make you sleep. We have a small energizer by Ms. Avni. Over to you, Ms. Avni.
Thank you so much. Okay, so here is an activity. It's, you have to identify the ecosystem. I've put some emojis here and you have to identify which ecosystem this is. So guess the ecosystem. This is the first. Exactly, it's tundra. Right. Okay, the next ecosystem. Very nice. Desert. Third ecosystem. Yes, absolutely. The next ecosystem. Absolutely. Yeah, grasslands. The next ecosystem. Yes, fresh water. It's fresh water. The next ecosystem. Yes, forest. Awesome. So now we'll have Shreya, who will be assigning the targets to you for this event. Yes. We'll assign the targets and then we'll have a session. Yep.
Okay, so hello everyone. Now, with the pre-MCOP sessions and the sessions we had this morning, you've got a lot of background information, and now we are going to talk about how you're going to use that information for biodiversity conservation. Okay? So as Neha ma'am said, we strive to create smart goals to guide our actions. So could I have the clicker? Yeah. Okay, so I'll just lay out what your activities are going to be like over the next day and a half. So, as you know, there are 6 key targets that we have selected, which are aligned with the 3 broad goals of the KMGBF. What is the KMGBF? Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Okay, so now you're going to be formulating action plans in groups on how to implement these targets. So this involves basically you'll be working in groups to brainstorm, you'll discuss and ask questions, and you might rework what plans you've drafted. And this will be, yeah, so you'll be having some mentors who will be present here for the next session or so, and they will be there to guide you on how exactly to draft these action plans. Okay. So there'll be deliberations and negotiations. Some of you might agree or disagree on certain things. Dr. Mathur's session, which comes next, will be very, very useful because you're all coming from different places. Your states may have different priorities. So how do you come to agreement on a common ground? That is something Dr. Mathur will be guiding you on. Next, you'll be tabling the action plans for a jury. This will happen tomorrow. Okay? A jury will evaluate your action plans and again give you useful feedback. So that way you will get a lot of guidance on how to make your action plan smarter. What's smart? What? Right, right. Okay, and next, of course, you'll be implementing that feedback, finalizing it, and you'll be presenting your final action plans at the finale, which is on Friday, the 12th. Okay. All right, and finally, yes, it doesn't end there. You'll be going back home and implementing the plans that you have drafted, that you have agreed to together and committed to. Okay, you'll be implementing them in your states. All right, so let's have a look at what the targets are for this year. You can take a photograph, and in fact, I think someone on the group, I've already shared the PDF. Riddhi, could you just post it on the group, please? Yeah. So there are 6 targets, and different states have been grouped. Take a look. So, okay, target 1, identify invasive alien species found in your city, including their pathways of introduction and impact on the ecosystem. Liaise with local authorities and organizations to reduce their presence by 30%. So then we have another target 2 is about assessing the health of soil and drawing up a strategy to improve soil quality. Target 3 is for identifying the non-timber forest products that are harvested and traded in your state, and eventually making recommendations to ensure their sustainable use. Target 4, map the green and blue spaces in your city and develop a blueprint to make the area more biodiversity inclusive by 2027. Target 5, identify 5 local businesses and aim for a 30% reduction in their plastic use by 2027. And target 6, liaise with your school management committee, develop a biodiversity management plan and implement it in your school's municipal area. Okay? So do you think these targets are relevant to your states or not? Can you see why they might be relevant? Okay, why are non-timber forest products relevant to the states of Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh? Any, yeah?
The illegal trading of red sandalwood in Andhra Pradesh.
What about Meghalaya? The same target. Why would the same target be something of relevance to you? Do a lot of local communities depend on the forests very directly? They do, right? So that makes the target relevant to you, right? Right. So that's why we've grouped different states in this way, so that targets that are relevant to you and where you can actually create some kind of impact on the community. All right, so I will leave you with this, and I think we can, we now have some background. Keep these targets in mind for the next few sessions, and you'll be getting a lot more tips on how to proceed. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shreya and Avni, for clearly outlining the MCOP 5 targets. Next up, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. V.B. Mathur, who has recently held as the chairperson of the National Biodiversity Authority, NBA. He has served for 33 years at the prestigious Wildlife Institute of India and also holding the position of Dean and subsequently the director from 2014 to 2019. Dr. Mathur has been actively contributing on biodiversity research policy interface issues and has been associated with United Nations Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, UNIPBES, the UN CBD Bureau member. In July 2022, he was elected as the Vice Chair of IPBES Bureau. His area of interests include wildlife management, international biodiversity negotiations, and green infrastructure development. Welcome, sir, and over to you. Thank you so much.
Go up on the stage, sir. Yeah. You can use the hand mic.
Hand mic constrains my hand. Or otherwise I'll use. No, I will use this one. Follow mic.
Follow mic nahi hai na?
How do you move? Okay, somebody is moving side. No, no. A very good afternoon to all of you. See, it's a very great pleasure and a privilege for me to come for the MCOPs. And you are in MCOP 5, and I have the pleasure in saying that I have attended all 5. Last 2-3 years, and during the time of pandemic, they were all held virtually, so they were giving a different flavor. And this time when the opportunity came that there is a face-to-face possibility, I said I will come myself, and here am I before you. What you see as this topic, which I will be discussing in the next 30-40 minutes, is about negotiation and about consensus building. Right now, these are two words before you. I will explain as we go along that what negotiation means and how do you build consensus. But I am very sure that you would be dealing with both these topics in your own personal life. It's not that for the first time you are being asked to listen and to hear about that. But the important point is that this particular thing about negotiation and consensus building, the context is biodiversity conservation. One can do a negotiation on anything. One can build a consensus or lack of it on anything, but all that binds us together in this room and this event is the biodiversity conservation, on which I am going to speak on that. Now, there will be some overlaps because speakers before me early in the program would have spoken to you about that. But I, in my own words and in my own style, will try to explain to you. See, one of the biggest events which has happened in the last few years in the field of biodiversity conservation is what happened in December 2022. We are now in July 2024, but almost 2 years back, it was in Canada, in Montreal, that 196 countries who are parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, they came together and they agreed what is called as the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And that is the context in which we are going to discuss. And if you see that, I will show you at a glance. But let us see what binds all these 196 countries together. There must be something which all countries look forward to. And everybody in this room, if I were to ask that there is a statement before you, living in harmony with nature, I don't think there will be anybody who will disagree with that. So this is the global goal, which 196 countries in the world have agreed that yes, we need to live in harmony with nature. Now, as we were discussing earlier in the day, that goals are goals, they are aspirational, but how we are going to achieve them? Can we break down into something else? And you have been talking about targets and indicators and things like that, and that is what exactly I am going to do on that. So, when we look at this living in harmony with nature, in this global biodiversity framework, there are 4 goals. You can right now just remember that there are 4 A, B, C, D. They deal with species, they deal with communities, they deal with funding, they deal with resource exchange on that. Now, if we move further on that, then if goals are to be achieved, goals are achieved through targets. And right now, you don't have to remember each goal, you don't have to remember each target, but trust me when I say that there are 4 goals and there are 23 targets to achieve these goals. Now this diagram, whether you call it simple or complicated, has been agreed upon by 196 countries in the world. When I say agreed upon, there is a process behind that. There is a process because when I say you are sitting in different tables, you come from different state, you may have a different view. You can say, why only 4 goals? Why can't we have 5? You may say, no, 5 is too many. We should have only 2 goals. Same is true with targets. How this number of 23 has come. So, it is important for me to share with you that for 4 years, representatives of these countries, parties to the CBD, they talk just like as you are here for 3 days here in different places in the world, in different meeting rooms, in different settings, and so on and so forth. I was fortunate that I was part of these discussions and a part of these discussions. See, you can't be a part of everything. So I was also a part of the 4 goals that we are talking. Goal 1, which was about objectives and things, I was part of that. So my experience to you, which I am relating to you in this session, is coming from that. But you can well imagine that when the world agrees at a global level, there will be a long drawn protracted process. And that process is basically the negotiation process. And when people differ, you may have a different viewpoint, he may have a different viewpoint, we then need to come together. Then only progress will be made. So that is what is called as a consensus building. And when, in a follow-up exercise from now, when you would be preparing an action plan, you would also be discussing that across the groups which have been created a little while ago. You may come from different state, you may come with different background, you may come with different social setup, and so on, urban, rural, peri-urban, whatever. And each one will have his own ideas about that. But finally, what WWF is expecting, or what NEHAM is expecting, to come up with an action plan which one of your representative is going to present. So that means he is the voice of that group. And we expect that you may have differences, you may have different ideas, but when you will come and present that, you will be presenting the summary or outcome of that. So this is what is important. But I was discussing with my colleague Vishesh here, it is very important to understand why we are doing all these things. Context, you have understood biodiversity conservation. There is a word over there called theory of change. Now change, you understand. Anything which changes with time, with space, is change. But believe me, you have to go to the detail and depth of it. A deep dive, as it is called. There must be some theory behind. And that is what I am going to explain through this diagram. If you look on the extreme right is a vision, which is living in harmony with nature. But how this living in harmony is going to come about? That is the question. You may follow a different route, she may follow a different route, I may suggest something else. And there can be more than one route also. But let us understand that what is the theory behind that. So, when we say change, we must know what is existing now. And we must know a time frame. So, as you can see below, there is a word there written called today. Where are we today? And then we visualize and say, by 2030, maybe it was being discussed earlier, 10 years time, now already 4 years have passed before actual implementation has taken place, but there is a timeline there. And then there is a larger timeline of 2050. Because in conservation, because in biodiversity, things don't happen overnight. Losses may happen overnight, but gains will take time. So there is a larger now, a roadmap before us that we must know where we are. We must have a timeline, an intermediate timeline, and we have a longer time frame for that. Okay, so now you have understood that. Now, how are we going to move along this timeline? What actions we need to take? What are the impediments before us? What steps we are required? And what kind of resources that we will need? All these things is then depicted in that. Now, for any change to happen, there is another word called driver of change. Okay, you understand what is the driver? So if you want to move from here to here, there must be some change here. There must be some driving force here. Now these drivers also, you can see, have been classified as direct drivers and indirect drivers. Even if it takes me a few more minutes, I must explain to you, because then you will understand the concept of biodiversity conservation, that what are the direct drivers of change. Because when you will prepare an action plan, when you will talk of removing or dealing with solid waste or pollution over there, it should be at the back of your mind that what is causing that. Unless you deal and address the causative factors, you will never be able to find a solution to that. So what the scientists have been able to say, that when we talk of biodiversity conservation, when we talk of drivers of change, there are, as you can see, 5 drivers under direct: land use change, direct exploitation, climate change, pollution, and invasive species. Unfortunately, in our discussion a little while ago, you were already talking about pollution. Many of you talked about that. You talked about invasive species. There is also a direct harvesting or killing of wild animals which is taking place. So these are what we call as the direct drivers of change. So the direct will definitely have more force, they will have more effect, but then there are indirect drivers also. So a combination of forces which include direct drivers, which include indirect drivers, are working in the world. So when we talk of conserving biodiversity, when we talk of preventing the loss of biodiversity, then we need to address both the direct drivers and both the indirect drivers over there. Okay. Now, this is theory, and this I am talking is also theory of change. Now, if you know what the direct drivers are, when you also know what the indirect drivers are, we must also try to find out what these drivers are doing. They are not just sitting like that or waiting for you to work. They are in operation. So therefore comes the current status. And that is where you see today. Even today when we talk about, when you will be talking about your action plan, what we call in other words, a word called baseline. What is the situation today? How bad is the pollution? How bad is the problem of weed? How many species have been lost? So all that baseline has to be known, and we know through scientific studies. And you remember a word was being mentioned. I will like to explain to you. There is an UN organization called UN-IPBES, IPBES, the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, headquartered in Germany, in Bonn. This group has worked about the assessments, the global level assessments. What is happening to weeds? What is happening to pollinators? What is happening to land degradation? All these reports, whenever you have time, if you go to Google and type IPBES, you will go to the website and you will find the best scientific literature available at a single place. A global literature, which whatever you want to improve your knowledge, write an essay, appear in the exam, appear in the interview, that is the site which anyone who is dealing with biodiversity conservation needs to see, apart from CBD and UNEP and other hundreds of sites on that. So we know how ecosystems are getting degraded, how species and genetic diversity losses are occurring, and how human well-being is being jeopardized. See, in all this narrative that I made, first time I am speaking or using the word human well-being. See, in all the narrative, we were talking in the previous session about communication. Remember that? But communication has been about species, it has been about ecosystems, it has been about communities, but it has never really happened on human well-being. That is the big message now. That what makes me to act or what makes you to act? You may say that, if species loss is happening, how does it affect me? If ecosystems are degraded, how does it affect me? You may say that. But when it comes to human well-being, when it comes to your own health, and you remember you were very much alive and active during the pandemic days, when your lifestyle, when your food, when your movement, everything was getting affected. Then you realize that the pandemic has an impact on human well-being. Scientists have been saying for all these years that this virus is there and this pathogen is there and this is happening, that is happening, but nobody cared. Till in a collective manner, the entire world got affected by the COVID-19 pandemic because human well-being was being affected. So therefore, in your narrative on biodiversity conservation, it is very important to introduce and include the ideas on human well-being. Then only people listen. Otherwise people say, अरे ये मेरे को कुछ नहीं होगा, अगर 2 species चली जाएंगी, what loss it will happen? वो वहाँ पर डोडो चला गया तो क्या हो गया, चीता चला गया तो क्या हो गया? These kind of things people talk. But when it comes to human well-being, and what we learned in pandemic, whether you were in Italy or US, or whether you were in India or Bhutan or Bangladesh, it did not matter. It affected everyone. So the entire humanity, the entire human well-being of the entire humanity was getting affected. So that is why that thing becomes very important. And then we now have, for addressing any problem, you must have tools. Tools, you understand what tools are there. Tools are instruments of different kinds over there. We need to reduce the threats. If you were to ask me what is one action I need to do, I must address the threat which is causing it. If it is poaching, I need to reduce that. If it is land degradation, I need to reduce that. So threats have to be addressed, and at the same time, because there are 7 billion people living on this earth, human needs also have to be factored in. You cannot say that, and in this part of the world where we live, human being, human population, communities are very important. So any of your idea, any of your activity, any of your solution, you must also test that how will local people react to it. The same weed that you are talking may be a food for certain people. And you say we will remove it, that means you are removing the food. How they are going to react to that. So these things are again very, very important, and I am taking this point to address that human dimension of conservation is very, very important. Species are important, will always remain important, but human dimensions are very, very important on that. So we have now set up under this GBF milestones talking about ecosystems, genetic diversity. 2 more things are very important. Benefits from nature. See, there are some benefits which each one gets, you and I also get, but these benefits are shared equitably. You understand the word equitably. You can't just say that only certain sections of people will have that, other sections will not have it. That is no good. So it has to be shared. The benefits of conservation, the benefits of biodiversity have to be shared equitably. And then lastly and most importantly, and which you will also have to discuss in your action plan, what are the means of implementation? When I say means, I am largely talking about resources. And when I say resources, I am actually talking of money. Remember in the previous session when you were being asked that what do you need to achieve this goal, and you were answering, Dr. Bharucha sitting next to me says, oh, Mathur Sahab, only money, money and money. Because without resources, nothing moves. Today, the biggest debate which is going on at the global level is this, that for conservation, which is a global resource, for humanity's well-being, who is going to produce or provide those resources? We are saying the developed countries have an onus to do that. They are saying, no, you will need to do that. And everybody is arguing with little success on that. So means of implementation are very important. And therefore, when you prepare your action plan, you must also spend a few minutes, a few lines on that, from where the resources are going to come. Resources, as I said, can be and would be on money, but it could also be on your capacity, your training. Do we have technical manpower? Do we know what are the methods to reduce or remove pollution on that? So resource mobilization and means of implementation become very, very important. So now, with this little background, which I thought will be very important to contextualize you and to prepare you better for these next 2 days of negotiations. So the challenge is that how do we implement the GBF and those 23 targets which are there, and we have ourselves agreed upon the timeline of 2030 and 2050. Okay, so this is the operating part of it, and now there is no going back because we and our bosses and our politicians and our negotiators have given us on that. And you can see here that this was negotiated and consensus buildings period spanning over 3 years. So it's not a one-day affair. And as we will discuss more about negotiation, you will understand why it is difficult, how it is to be addressed, and why consensus building cannot happen overnight. My ultimate aim is, at the end of this exercise, you should be able to feel that I can also negotiate. And believe me, I will put up in the slide also, there is a negotiator sitting in you. I need to bring that negotiator out through your exercise, through your experience over there. Now, interestingly, in CBD, there is also one more very important criteria, which is the last one. Nothing is agreed till everything is agreed. Can anybody explain what is meant by, yes please? Okay, you have given the literal explanation. But imagine what happens in a group of 5 friends. Okay, 5 of your classmates, you decide to go for a movie, and you need to decide which movie. Okay, and 2 of your friends will say this, 3 will say this, 1 will say something, and so on and so forth. But then how do you decide? You try to explain, and after a while you say 4 out of 5 have agreed. That's what you say, and you go ahead with that. That is, in most cases we take a call and a decision like that. But in the CBD process, as you can see here, nothing is agreed till everything is agreed. Every single word, every single sentence, and I will go one step forward, every single comma and full stop. I also learned the harder way what is the nuance of a comma. What does a comma means? How it can change the perception of the discourse and of the dialogue which is going on. So that is the CBD practice, that everybody, so all those 4 goals that we talked about, every single word which is written over there, every single place where that comma or a full stop is there, everybody is agreed. And if you don't agree, you don't move forward. And that is the reason why it took more or 3 years to achieve this kind of a thing. I will leave it to my colleagues in WWF to say that do we follow the same strict sense, but you must get a feel of that. That how to take people, your friends, your colleagues together to say that each one agrees. And you will find that is the art of negotiation. Sometimes you may have an objection to a particular word or to a particular place where comma is put, or a particular, it has to be put in italics or it has to be put in bold. All these things have different nuances. And whether we like it or not, because these negotiations largely take place in English, this is a large amount of knowledge and understanding of the language which becomes important in the negotiation process. That is, I would say, an unfortunate part, because our mother tongue is not English. But we need to learn, we need to improve on that. So now, let's look at some formal processes also. As you can see here, negotiation is a process by which 2 or more people, now your WWF colleagues have created groups by states and by numbers, it could be 5 or 7 or whatever. They need to resolve an issue and arrive at a better outcome. See, what is the purpose? Why are we spending time and effort in understanding that? That collectively, when we sit in a group, when we start discussing an issue, we capture the minds and ideas of people to have a better outcome. Then, when we meet in a group, when we start discussing, there will be arguments. It's not the process of not allowing the arguments. Arguments will happen, should happen. But ultimately, it leads to an agreement. And see how the language is phrased, with which both parties feel satisfied. See, this is the important part of it. If somebody says, "Are aapne kar liya, you have taken a decision, but I am not happy," don't we say that? Many times our parents take this decision, and you say, "Aap keh rahe hain, maine maan liya." We do that. But here the intent and purpose is that both parties feel satisfied that we have achieved We have arrived at a consensus. This is what we agree to, and so on. It is also persuasion. Many things happen in this world by persuasion. In my management style, persuasion is the only thing which works. Because I agree to you, I propose you something, you initially disagree, then I come up back and say 5 more things to you, you say 3 more things to me, and finally you said, okay, I am fine with this particular thing. So persuasion is going to be very important on that. And obviously, negotiation is a tool for conflict management. If people are disagreeing, people are arguing over there, countries are disagreeing on that, then we need to see to it that conflict management and conflict resolution. See, that is the real test. At the end of the day, if we have spent 5 hours of working and talking together, at the end of the day, you say bye-bye, I say bye-bye, conflict remains over there, no resolution occurs, and the conflict stays over there. That is not something of an outcome that we are looking for. And then see the bottom line on that. Can anybody explain in the English word what is the trade-off? Anybody? What is the trade-off? Yes?
Okay, I'm guessing in a negotiation it could be I get this and you get that and neither of us get this. So it's either a benefit on both ends or if it's a disadvantage on both ends.
See, more than that, trade-off is something I want 100% of the benefits to come to me on anything. But when we are arguing, when we are discussing, I realize that 100% is not possible. The other party is willing to give you 90%. Then I say, yes, I should agree. I can have a trade-off that I am losing here, but on another issue, I might do a reverse. I might try to get 85% of my view as compared to 70% of the other. So you will realize in that you will have to have your positions, but you will also have your fallback position. That I am prepared, if everything is fine, I get 90% of what I want. But if I don't get 90%, I can be fine with 70 also on this issue. But if a related issue comes, I can again fight back or go back to that. So these are kind of trade-offs. And believe me, in real life, these are the trade-offs which work. These trade-offs, as a parent I am now saying, work in your personal lives also. Your child is asking 10 things. You can't give them 10. But then you negotiate, you work, you explain, and settle for 6 or 7 on that. And at the end of the day, the child feels happy that I wanted 10, I got 6. I'm happy that I was supposed to fund for 10, I am funding for 6. So see, these are the kind of things which are real life. And that is what I'm trying to explain through my personal experience, that there is nothing very different what happens in your professional life and what happens in your personal life. If you think they are different, you may be lucky, they are not. So they get reflected over there. So there will be some gives and there will be some takes on that. So now comes this stages, how we need to prepare ourselves. When we go to Geneva, when we go to Montreal, we go with different ideas and things. But before you go for any negotiation, the first step is preparation. You need to prepare yourself that this is what is going to come on that. And I'm sure the pre-COP which you had, pre-MCOP that you had, was basically a teaser for you to explain what is going to happen on the 10th, 11th and 12th of July when you come and meet physically. And you need to prepare yourself. Any good resource person or a manager or a student will spend some time in the preparation. And ultimately, what is important? How do you prepare? You need to look at data. You need to look at information. You need to exchange information. You may have ideas on 5 things. She may have ideas on 3 things. But when you talk together, you say, oh, you can help me on that. I can provide you information on that. Let's divide on that. So these are some steps on that. Then, when we get some text before us, when we get some diagram before us, there might be some clarification required. Things are not clear as they are written, as they are shown. So clarifications are important. The same text can be interpreted differently. So you need your friend, you need your guidance, you need your teacher, you need your advisor, you need your mentor to tell you that how the clarifications are there. And then we need to bargain. Bargain may not be a good word, trade-off is a better word, and to say that how do we do that. And finally we need to have a conclusion. That this group of us, 4 of us have discussed that, we had different ideas, we came with different preparations, we did an information exchange, we sought clarifications from each other, and this is what we are agreeing to that. So these are basically the 5 stages of negotiation. They are not one by one, they can be overlapping, they can be cross-cutting as well, but they should be at the back of your mind, which is there. Now, this is what I was trying to say earlier. Everyone is a negotiator. Don't underestimate yourself. You may not have been tested for that, but you will have your own innate skill for that. And in this process, everything is negotiable. You can't go for a negotiation and say, I have come only for this, target 1, 2, 3, 4, I will not discuss. That's not on. Everything is open on the table. In your group, when you are giving an exercise on that, everything is open, every aspect is open on that. So each one of you is a negotiator, everything is open on that. Now comes the big word. See, this is the clue for real life. One person wins and one person loses is a very normal thing. Nothing great in that. But how do you steer the process of negotiation that both parties feel it's a win-win? See, this is a lesson for real life also, in your personal life also, that we need to look at that how can we do a win-win situation for us. So the parents are also happy and the child is also happy and grandparents are also happy and everybody is happy. So that is the win-win situation, and therefore I have gone to the extent to say it is an attitude. My attitude is not to show you down, or your attitude should not be that I will win and I will defeat this person. If you do that, then you are not a good negotiator. You can do it. Most of the time people try to do that. But what I am trying to explain to you is look at the situation, look at the possibility where a win-win is possible. You need to have a mindset, you need to have a thing. Then only we will be prepared to give up something. If you everything I want, that I won't give anything and I want everything. If with this attitude you go in a negotiation, then things will not happen. So you need to. The third point is the power of listening. See, a good negotiator listens. Unfortunately, many of us don't do that. We just jump. Meri baat sun lo pehle. Don't we say that? No, I must speak first and I must do this and I will have the first chance to speak and this is my view. Everybody should listen. If you do like that, you will never be a good negotiator. Believe me when I say that when you listen to a person, you are doing many things. When I talk, when I listen, my mind is working different else. I am listening what he is saying, but that person's body language, that person's stress on things, okay, insistence on things, everything is giving me a message that how I am going to deal with this person. And you must have also realized in your own friends group that each friend is different. You apply a different strategy for X and different strategy for Y. It works on X, it doesn't work on Y. So this is what I'm saying, but you need to listen. If you don't listen, then you will never understand what that person's viewpoint is there. And many times I feel in negotiation that there is another word I want to use, articulation. The way you say a thing. See, how do we operate? With our eyes see something, our mind registers something, our mouth says something. But you will realize that there can be a lack of coordination. Eyes are not seeing what they are supposed to see. What eyes are seeing, the mind is not registering. And what the mind is registering, you do not have the articulation to say that. So therefore, when anybody is speaking in a negotiation, you need to listen very carefully and to find out that what he is saying is what he is meaning, and what he is meaning is what he is saying. You understand that phrase? You may mean something else, but you say something. And that is for a good negotiator to understand that this is what you probably mean, seek a clarification on that. Then comes how to remain positive when attacked. All these things are not theory. I am saying it from practice. Many times people will try to agitate you. People will try to provoke you on something else, either related or unrelated. And it is your personality, how do you react to it? If you are a smart negotiator, you will simply listen. You will absorb, but you will not react. Because the moment you react, if somebody has said 10 dirty things, you can always say 20 different dirty things to him or her as well. But that is not going to help. So therefore it says that when you are under fire, when you are attacked, you have to hold on. So we are discussing the skills of negotiation. And these skills of negotiations, I am training you for life. Not for these 3 days of WWF MCOP 5 only. If you learn this, if you imbibe this, if you practice it, you will realize that you are a better person. You are a greater, your personality has evolved over a period of time. You don't react so fast, you don't react so badly, you listen to the person and then put in your own manner on that. So, let's discuss some more points. Again I stress, prepare, prepare, prepare. This is the mantra for life. Whether it is an exam, whether it is an interview, whether it is a discussion, whether it is your performance in the field of sports and games. Nothing comes without preparation. You remember what our Surya Yadav said on that catch? You saw that recent catch? Everybody was praising about that, and he said, sir, in our practice, we were doing it regularly. So, the system is designed in such a way that you need to prepare how to handle a ball which is flying off the boundary. It doesn't come overnight. That may be an extreme example. I am wondering that how that practice must be taking place. How do you engineer that kind of a ball which is walking and the player is trying to catch and jump on that? But the point is, preparation is the key. You need to prepare, prepare, prepare. What happens during negotiation is that many things happen at a very fast speed. People speak differently, people speak fast and slow. You need to be very careful in taking your own notes. You must know there are 5 different people. In your own group, you will find 5 people, 5 representatives from 5 different states. You need to look at that what is that person saying. Make your own notes, make your summarization on that. Because he may say or she may say 10 different things, but only 4 are important or 2 are important. You must be able to capture that. Many times we need to check somebody's ideas on the grounds of legitimacy. You may give a totally nonsensical idea. Somebody is negotiating, everybody is free to say everything over there. You need to say on that is it logical? Is it legitimate? Can it happen on that? Because that will empower you to counter that. If the ideas are not legitimate, supposing if somebody says that there is a monkey menace in Lodi Road and we will kill all monkeys over. That is my proposal. Then you need to look at that. That is it legitimate? Is it logical? Is it ethical? So that goes. So hold on to your argument. When you will counteract them, then you will say that, look, you cannot pursue this particular option because of X, Y, and Z. This is what is happening. And lastly is always be thankful and courteous, goes without saying. Whether you like it, whether things are happening to your choice or not happening to your choice, you have to remain decent. You have to be courteous over there. Because many times it happens that all that hard work that you do will get unnoticed if you in the end be very rude to someone. So in real life, never be rude. Because rudeness or expression of rudeness will not take you far. You may win a point. You may say that, oh, that person said anything and I gave it on his face that no, this is nonsense, I don't agree on that. But then you will never win friends. So these are some of the things which you need to do on that. Again, some tips now. Confidence is important. Confidence comes with preparation, with all the homework that you do. But there is a very slight difference between confidence and overconfidence. You understand what I'm trying to say? That confidence is fine, you must have it, but it should not get converted or reflected into overconfidence. Because overconfidence will have its own pitfalls. You may be tripped at some point where you are not prepared at all. Many times during negotiations, we start with open-ended questions. Will anybody explain what is an open-ended question? Yes? Can you give me an example? That's an explanation. Give me an example. See, this is how you start a conversation. You are my friend, I want to take you out for a movie. Okay? Now, I can ask you a straight question. That look, this is the movie, let's go there. Without knowing whether you like movies or not, whether you like English movie or Hindi movie, whether you like Shah Rukh Khan or whether you like Preeti Zinta and so on and so forth. So, in negotiations, you need to start with some open-ended question. For example, you say that if we have time, do you mind going for a movie? Which one? The one you said or one I said? How? Okay. Well, I take that point. We can do it on there. How would you like to spare your free time? Okay. That is a more open-ended question. And somebody may say, no, I will go and sleep. I will go to a restaurant and eat food. Then you start negotiating on that. So in negotiations also, instead of asking, what is your view on this thing? Is this actor fine or not? Is this film fine or not? You need to build up to that particular conversations on that. Then it comes, listen and restate comments. You know, sometimes when you hear a view, as I said, this is because of the English language, which is not our mother tongue, we are not familiar with that. So you start looking at it, a person rattles out for 4 minutes something, and then you absorb and say that, is that you mean what you are trying to say? And that person will say, हाँ मैं यही कह रहा था. This is exactly I was trying to tell. So that is what paraphrasing means on that. Watch for non-verbal clues. Many times your eyes, your hands, your body language says differently. So you need to be very watchful, because the same kind of thing, there can be a match, there can also be a mismatch. Okay? You can understand. How do you know, how do you find out whether that person is telling the truth or not? When we are doing a one-to-one conversation, you want to know that, have you done that? So it is difficult, but then you start looking at clues, that when you pose this question, how that person is reacting to it, responding to that. So non-verbal clues are important. Staying cool is also very important. Again, that point being made, depersonalize argument. That means you can't use the language, if I were there, I will never do this. I cannot agree to this. The language of I, which shows you that you are the supreme and everybody needs to listen to you. That is over there. And then you say, do your homework, and negotiations will not end. When you go back to your room today, think of it, that the stand that you took, the argument that you said, what you listen, this is what is your homework, that could I have done better? See, this is the introspection you need to do every time, that could I have done better than what I did? So these are the things which are again important. Same thing, understand the issue fully before offering solution. We are every day talking about human-wildlife conflict. And everybody is a champion. Everybody will come on the TV debate and say, do this, do this, do this, do this. But have we fully understood what is the question? What is the context? What is the solution over there? And then you know what is an ultimatum? If you don't agree to this, I will walk out from here. That is an ultimatum. It doesn't work in international negotiation, doesn't work in any negotiation if you do that. The same homework that I was talking, you need to arm yourself with reports, with information, that how this particular thing is being dealt over there. All those colleagues who were talking that I will lead with solid waste pollution in Bangalore or in Uttarakhand need to look at how other states are doing. You may be doing it for the first time in Uttarakhand, but that doesn't mean that that is the first time that problem is being addressed on that. So you need to look at that. Also, you need to monitor the pace of arguments, because sometimes it happens you get stuck on something and then you spend hours and hours on that. So that is also very important. And last point you say, never tell a lie. Many times we are tempted, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, but it doesn't work. One fine day, one moment, it will be discovered, it will lead to an embarrassment. Therefore, you don't need to tell a lie, you need to be. So finally, with all my discussions, I hope I have not run out of time. These are the two takeaways. A negotiation is a strategic decision-making process that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable and therefore results in a win-win outcome. This is the spirit in which you should enter the negotiation. All this exercise that you do, not to run anybody down, not to prove anybody wrong, not to say that we didn't agree with them, I didn't agree with that, this is not acceptable, and so on and so forth. We need to look at that. When negotiating, be sure to justify your position. Put yourself in other parties' shoes. See, this is a life lesson. You will never understand the pain of a person till you yourself put yourself in that. See, these are very practical things. Maybe you come from an urban background. You don't know how rural systems operate, or vice versa. You will never understand what a person means on that. You remember that joke when a group of people were asked that we have to do something to feed the hungry people. There was a particular nationality person who says, what is hunger? Because in their life they had never seen there is anything called hunger on that. So those things are very, very important. Keep your emotions in check. And finally, it also says when to walk away. It's not that you need to agree with 100% things all the time. If you think you have tested and tried everything, it is not working, then of course you have to say that, look, this position is unacceptable, I can't continue further. Having given a try, not that you don't give a try in one moment you say that no, I'm going, that is an ultimatum. But this is after going through that, you have done that. I think that is where I will like to stop, but if you have questions and things, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I am Pragun Jain from Madhya Pradesh. So you have worked in the field of biodiversity conservation for such a long time. So what are the changes that you have observed towards biodiversity in these long years?
Well, there are two views on that, an optimist view and a pessimist view. I am an optimist. I will say that when I started working 40 years ago, there were a handful of people who could talk, who could do anything or something on biodiversity. But today, I have hundreds of people, 100 of them even sitting in this room, who are to me the beacons of hope on that. So that is what is the changing part of that we are now getting more people. Having said that, more still needs to be done. It's not that we have got these people over here and everything is fine. We need to do more, but things are changing. Attitudes are changing. People are understanding the value of what a well-being means.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Ayan Singh Best from Himachal Pradesh. So, sir, I have a question for you. You told us about negotiations, and generally in a negotiation, a person has an upper hand, one of the person, right? So I have a basic question for you. Like, let's take an example. There's a person who has powers, right? And he's misusing it. And on the other hand, we have somebody who doesn't have so, right? He belongs to a middle class background. And that case, many times we see that negotiations when are taking place, it goes in favor to the person who has powers with him, right? How do we ensure fair negotiation between the two parties? Because as per the John Rawls theory of justice, even he stated that you have to put yourself in the position of others. However, we see that in our like in the new generation, we don't do so.
See, just to paraphrase what you are saying, on the face of it, there can be a situation when you are dealing with a very powerful person and you are at a weak position. But I also gave you all the steps of preparation, of information, of data, of analysis. And believe me, science and truth is something which you need to base upon. In all my years of dealing with the government, that's the only thing which has stood with me. That you need to have a good scientific information, you need to have a good interpretation, and finally you need to have a good articulation. Okay, so all these things are important, but ultimately the triumph is of truth only. जिसको आप बोलते हैं ना सत्यमेव जयते. Believe me, at the end of the day you will realize there may be some moments where you feel lost, where you feel disillusioned and you feel disheartened. But at the end of the day, if you have played your game well, if you have followed these things over there in letter and spirit, then I'm sure success will be yours.
Right, sir. Thank you so much.
So what if, I'm Deepika from Tamil Nadu. My question to you is, what if there's a complete contradiction between the two parties? For example, the one statement, the one party is completely okay to the statement, but the other party does not want it to happen at all. How do we come to a conclusion in this?
So see, that is where I said you need to find out if a person is agreeing, what makes him agree to that? If a person is disagreeing, there must be something on that. Maybe his own experience in the past is saying something. Maybe the science is saying something. Maybe he doesn't understand what the situation is. Believe me when I say, many times we argue, but because we have not listened to the problem. Just for the sake of argument we say, that's what he was also saying, powerful, powerful, powerful. These are the people who have never done their homework, or they have not done their full homework. And you need to counterbalance them by producing the facts. You can say that, okay, for example, again giving you a wildlife example, some people say that we should burn the grasslands. Okay. There are others who say, no, we should not burn the grasslands. Now the question is for the science to answer that what happens when you burn it, what happens when you don't burn it. So those kind of patience, perseverance, science you need to have. And then only that you have to make first people understand that this dialogue is possible. If you walk away from the dialogue stage itself by saying, no, he is very powerful, he will not listen to me, he said two rude things to me, therefore I will not talk, then things will not move. So you have to engage the person, you have to convey what the facts are. As we say, you need to separate the fact from fiction. Facts are saying something else. The interpretation of fact may be something else. The same thing which they say कि you feel इससे मेरे को बहुत नुकसान हो जाएगा. Don't you say that this will cause huge harm to me? Then you have to question yourself, what is that harm? Why is it happening? How can you avoid that? How can you minimize that? So these are the steps which you need to take before you draw any conclusion.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Lomas from Pondicherry. And since we have talked about the vision of 2050, the living in harmony with nature, and we have talked about the same contrasting theory of change. Theory of change is going to apply for all the things, and it is going to apply for the urbanization and the industrialization. So how do you think we are going to tackle both of this and aim our goal of 2050 and negotiate it?
See, in English language, sometimes we say the devil lies in the detail. What you are seeing is a diagram of a theory of change which I have tried to explain. There is a lot of depth of argument before that. But to put it very simply, the fight is between excessive consumption and little production. That is the mismatch. The way we are consuming resources, you and I included, not that I separate myself from this, our consumption level are too high for the nature to meet. And as long as this gap will persist, loss will